essentially saved my mother's life. If she hadn't left Bangladesh, the militants, they had planned on killing her. So I'm eternally grateful to Prime Minister Modi's government for saving my mother's life. Well, look, our government, during the protests last year, yes, there was some mishandling of the protests initially. The protests turned violent. Our government attempted to stop the violence. But yes, there was certainly a political motivation to it. You've had an unelected government staying in power for over a year and a half. Everything has been done undemocratically. You still have tens of thousands of political prisoners behind bars. We currently have over 100 members of parliament being held as political prisoners with no investigations, no trials. So at this point, it definitely is a political coup, if you will. No, we've not received any threats whatsoever. The only slight issue was the U.S. was the only country that issued a negative statement on our 2024 elections, which our opposition boycotted. Other than that, the elections were regarded as peaceful by everyone. So there was no direct pressure, there were no threats, and we've never received any pressure or threats since. Now, of course, there is a completely new government in the U.S., and the situation is completely different.
So are you hopeful that, things might move in another direction with this new administration that took over this January in the United States?
Yes, we've seen a very distinct change in outlook. President Trump himself announced at a press conference earlier this year that the previous administration, through USAID, had spent millions of dollars on regime change in Bangladesh. He was referring to the protests last year. So I think the U.S. attitude has definitely changed, and they're certainly more concerned about the threat of terrorism and the rise of Islamism in Bangladesh than the previous administration was.
Let's just, talk about India's role in this whole dynamics. What role do you believe India played during the crisis, and how do you assess New Delhi's current position on providing asylum to your mother?
India has always been a good friend, and in the crisis, India has essentially saved my mother's life. If she hadn't left Bangladesh, the militants, they had planned on killing her. So I'm eternally grateful to Prime Minister Modi's government for saving my mother's life. In terms of her extradition, look, for an extradition to happen, the judicial process has to be followed. What you have in Bangladesh is a government itself that's unelected, unconstitutional, and illegal. You have, in order to convict my mother, they amended laws to fast-track her trial, which you cannot amend laws without a parliament, so these laws were amended illegally. And then my mother was not allowed to hire her own defense attorneys. Her attorneys weren't even allowed into the courts. And you had the 17 judges terminated at the court before the trial, new judges appointed, some of whom who had absolutely no experience on the bench and were politically connected. So there was no due process whatsoever. And when there is such a case, extradition, no country is going to extradite when everything has been done illegally and without due process. So for extradition to happen, you have to have due process.
On the extradition request, coming back to it, will your mother really contest the extradition request from Bangladesh, and on what grounds? You did briefly mention about, the grounds, of course. And frankly, do you believe she can receive a fair trial in the current political climate in Bangladesh?
Not at all. This was a rubber stamp court. This was a kangaroo court. Right now, for the past year and a half, tens of thousands of political prisoners have been held without bail. So right now there is no rule of law in Bangladesh, and so justice is simply not possible. Someday when democracy returns, when rule of law returns, of course we will fight this, and there is absolutely no way this trial, this process will be upheld by any court. It's simply not possible because it was so blatantly executed.
And finally question, what message would you send to Indian authorities, the Prime Minister of India, as they consider how to handle this extradition request?
I think they know very well how to handle this extradition request. I don't think the Indian government is going to respond to such an illegal request. I really don't have any opinion on that whatsoever because I have faith in the Indian democracy, in their belief in the rule of law. What should really concern India is that the Yunus regime, you had asked, who is propping them up? It is Jamaat-e-Islam, which are the largest Islamic party. They have released tens of thousands of terrorists that our government had convicted and sentenced to prison. They've released them. You have Lashkar-e-Taliban operating freely now, and they've taken credit, and links have been found to their branch in Bangladesh for the recent terror attacks in Delhi. So I think Prime Minister Modi is probably very, very concerned about terrorism from Bangladesh right now.